Hi, I'm Stephanie West. Welcome to my show called Central Coast Music Chat. And this is a music interview series that I started where I interview local bands and artists on California's Central Coast. And I'm doing it on Zoom as a safe way to interview during COVID. And I started this about a year ago. When the COVID lockdown started, as a way to connect with bands and musicians and connect them with their fans and their friends. So who would have known that a year would pass by and we would still be here doing this? So hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to get out there and start doing interviews in person. But until then, I'm really excited to have Monique Grajeda here. And she is a local musician. She is an architectural designer and she's an athlete. She's just an all around really cool person and badass lady. Hey, Monique. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm glad you summed me up in 3 sentences.
I hope so.
1 sentence.
What's new with you?
Well, I don't. That's kind of a loaded question because I could go on and on. I'm just busy trying to keep going, with the COVID happening and trying to work still, and it's been okay. Trying to hopefully the office where I am, and that's also part of this gallery. That's Michael's Ackerman's gallery. And looking for another place. We hope that we can do shows again with the Stage 9. And I'm trying to get back into myself playing because I haven't played in so long. So I'm kind of rusty.
Tell me about your involvement with Dwellin Art. How'd you get involved with Dwellin Art?
It started a long time ago. Actually, no, it only started about 3, maybe 2.5 years ago or so. Michael had contacted me. I had met him years ago. He owned a gallery. That's his gallery he had in town, and then he had contacted me because he also is a contractor. He's a licensed contractor, and he was trying to ask me about doing plans. So then that's how we got hooked up, and I needed work done. I redesigned my exterior of my place, and it was kind of a really different design. So not any not any contractor would necessarily want to do it. Is very, I want to say it was a modern, really different. And so he was really into it, and he's good, and he did it well. And then he saw this spot, and he wanted to redo his gallery, started up here. And then also somewhere along the way, there was the guys from the Shebang had asked Michael to help them build a structure for the can't remember the name of the event. It was up at the old by Shumash area where they had that show. They used to have a 3-day event out there. Remember, I should know it. It's very popular. And so he helped them. Then they do shows. They do things with bands. So then it somehow got started that they didn't want to do a show here, and he was into it because as an art gallery, he sometimes has had bands and musicians play here. So that started to really blossom. And then I know Eddie Numskull and Chris from Guardsman Productions, got them involved. So we were starting to just get these bookings going. And we were really starting to do, it was going to start turning out really cool. And then the COVID hit. And we all know what that meant. We couldn't do any more shows. So we are in limbo, waiting.
When did you start showing interest in playing guitar? Was there a particular moment when you just said, I got to get a guitar, I got to start getting lessons? And how did that all start?
It all started when I went to probably a Joan Jett concert.
Oh, really?
And I was always listening to, like, you know, the women rockers. I liked rock. I liked a lot of different kinds of music, but rock was what really was a passionate, you know, driving thing. I liked it. And so I remember going, I was pretty young. I went to Joan Jett and, you know, listened to Heart and stuff like that, and Lita Ford. And so at some point, I'm like, I wanted, you know, once you start seeing female rockers, and I was like, I want to do that. I just envisioned that's how I felt. I felt like them. So then I think I started slowly teaching myself, and I did take some lessons. And then from then on, just playing with other people is really what really advanced the playing a lot quickly. I mean, lessons are great, but when you play with other people, it's just you're in the moment and you're really feeling it and learning it hands-on. Or
Yeah. Well, how old were you when you first picked up a guitar?
Probably like 13. Probably like 13.
How'd you get a guitar? I mean, because a lot of girls, you know, around that time, and with the topic of music, it was a little bit more intimidating. I know. I mean, I bought my first guitar in the '90s, and I walked into a local music shop in San Jose, and there was just a bunch of dudes in there. There were no girls in there, and it was very intimidating. And I didn't want to I wanted to seem cool, and I didn't want to seem like I didn't know what I was doing. So, how'd you get your hands on a guitar? And were you intimidated by the process, or not?
You know, not too much then. I think I feel more like intimidated now than I did then. I think then it was just like a blank slate, and I had so much, you know, energy and drive and just, I'm gonna do it, you know, kind of an attitude. And actually, is what it is we always had like 2 or 3 acoustic guitars in my house, because my grandpa had like a really nice acoustic, and I had heard him play a few times. Not my dad or my mom, but my grandpa. And I think that because it was just around, I was able to like kind of try and pick it up once in a while. And then I think I think is what happened is that when I started to take guitar lessons, I either they let me use or keep one of those guitars, I think. You know, it was just small scale acoustic. It wasn't very expensive, but it was good enough to learn on. And then later on, you know, I was able to get an electric guitar. Yeah. So, but a long time on acoustic. I learned about music in junior high because I played the flute, and other things, in the junior high like symphonic band, and then later in high school I was in the marching band. I was in like a drum and bugle corps marching band, and so I learned music. You know, even though it's flute, I mean it pertains to all musical instruments, and so I learned music and notes and all these kinds of things there. So that helped a little bit with guitar. And then I also had some private lessons probably when I was in high school, I think, for guitar, you know.
Well, that's something. So besides a little bit of drums and flute and guitar, do you play any other instruments, or do you want to learn any other instruments?
I had played a little bit of trumpet. It was actually one of my brothers. My parents bought it for him to learn, and he just never did it. So I was all like, hey, I'll learn it. So I taught myself the trumpet, and I was able to play songs, but it's just, I never really took it anywhere, because you literally would have to go and be in a band to play, you know, maybe a ska band or not too many rock bands have a trumpet.
Right,
So,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Hard jazz, yeah. So that surprised me, but by listening to the band that you had been in, that you would be interested in playing the trumpet. Pretty interesting.
Well, it was just another challenge for me to learn, and I thought this is cool. It's, I like trumpets, but it is a whole different thing playing a trumpet. It's because you're using your lungs and your lips, and it's all about the pressure. How much pressure you put, and I liked it, but guitar, you get tired a little bit if you're really playing. With the trumpet, you can get really tired because you're consistently using your breath, and so anyway, that kind of went to the wayside after a few years. So many years, I didn't really, and so I lost my ability to play. I gave it to my other brother actually, and he plays quite a few instruments. And I have picked up, I could do a tiny bit on drums, a tiny bit on piano, and I was starting to learn violin, but I'm not like at all a violinist, I could just, I can hold it and look like I might look like I know what I can hold one or something,
What was the first band that you were in?
Oh, okay. This is going to sound, it's funny. It wasn't even like a serious band. It was me and my friend Carla. This was like, I would say we were in high school. And we recruited my little brother. And my little brother was probably like, 8 or something. And, me and Carla are probably like 15 or 16. And I had bought him, he wanted to play drums, which he actually plays drums now. But I bought him when he was 8 because I couldn't afford a lot. I bought him a Muppet drum set. It was like it had Muppets and it was small scale. But it was a drum set. And I think I had a guitar. And I think Carla sang, I don't know. But we had a little group, 2 like 15, 16-year-old high school girls and an 8-year-old boy. and I don't know how I came up with this name, but I called it the Hairy Tylenols. I don't know. It was just because it made no sense. Yeah. And I liked things that made no sense, as I still do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the Hairy Tylenols, what was next after that?
Well, there was a band, and I jammed with this band for a while in Fresno, and I cannot recall their name. It was a female. I think there was 2 singers, in fact. But for the life of me, I will not remember that name. And then beyond that, it was all of Ragg. It was Ragg. I started, and then it was that for at least 10 years.
So when did Ragg start, and who was part of the original lineup of Ragg?
It kind of started in the late 90s, and it was a neighbor of mine, Christine Beardroger. I found out that she played bass. Well, she had a Rickenbacker bass. Those are nice. So at that time I was like, I really want to do this all-female band. So I was like, I just got to do it. So I talked with her. She wanted to do it, but then she didn't play bass. She just said she had one, but she sang and she wrote songs. So so then me and her would get together and start up and start the beginnings of the song. And then I had to eventually get more people involved, and that's how it started.
And was this in the Flow area here?
Yeah, it was in San Luis Obispo.
So, so she was the singer then?
She was the first singer. Yeah, Christine Beardroger. She had her own style. She was from Thailand. half of, and English. And she liked to dress. She kind of liked to dress like a dominatrix when we played. She actually looked really good, and I felt like she wrote really good songs. Basically, it started out punk. Then we got a different singer after Christine moved, I believe. And then we still were punk, and we got more like of a raw punk. And then we went to, we started to transfer into just like a straightforward rock with like sometimes melodic rock, slower, heavier, driving sounds, and then we some songs became a metalish sound to them also. And then we even had intermixed once in a while, depending on who was the band. We had our one album, Room Full of Clowns, where there was actually like a couple ska songs in there. There's an instrumental song, and there's even like a rock, kind of a rockabilly sort of a song. Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot going on in that one album. And then later on, we tried to stay more of a one style. Yeah.
So what, with the last lineup that you did, when did the band officially end or take a break?
I can't remember the exact year. It's been at least probably 5 or 6 years. And the last rendition of it was a little bit of a shorter term. We only recorded like 2 songs, and it was with our singer she went by Tia. Mm-hmm. She went by Tia. Her name was Christy, but we had like 2 songs we wrote, and we did a cover, and then we played a few shows, but it kind of didn't last long. I was having issues with the bass player, and I kind of wanted to not have the bass player anymore. So when you remove someone, it takes a long time. Well, it could take a long time to restart because you got to look for somebody else. So when I did that, the singer, she decided at that time she was going to move to LA. So because she was gone, the bass player, it was just, and we had done it for 10 years. I had done it for 10 years. I was just like, you start to get discouraged. I just didn't want to look for people anymore.
So were you the only member that had been in it for 10 years straight?
No. At that time, I was going out, became a girlfriend, boyfriend to Anthony. His name was Anthony Dwellin. Mm-hmm. And he came into the band from the beginning because I could not find a female bass player, and he was already a bass. Yeah, I couldn't.
That's surprising.
I mean, maybe now there is, but then I just couldn't. Maybe I didn't look hard enough. Mm-hmm. But he was already a bass player in bands. He had played music all his life, so he was good. And I was surprised, he wanted to be involved, but he did, and he stayed with it the whole time. And he was a big part of it because I wrote about half of it, and he wrote about half of the songs, and he's a really good guitarist. I mean, really puts me to shame. His guitar playing is very good, and I learned a lot from being in the band with him.
What was your most memorable show with Ragg? What was the show that you thought was just off the chart?
Oh God, this is just it's amazing. If you ever go in a band, you'll find out that every show could just be, chaos could happen at any time. Mm-hmm. And I just have so many crazy stories of things that have happened. Oh God, I kind of don't know where to start. Once when we were playing BB King's, and we played in we were playing on okay, well, anyway, we're playing at BB King's at Universal. It's in the Universal Walk, you know,
Right.
and nice place. And so our first song, we're getting ready to start. As soon as we did the first kick drum kick, you know, the first hit, it busted the head of the drum.
Oh no.
And from then, that moment, you know, instead of going boom boom, it's like pump. It's like pump, pump. It's like you could barely hear it, and it's like, I mean, yeah, you could still play the song, but it's like it doesn't have that beat that you need. And so we're all looking at the drummer, and he's all looking at us. So right after the first song, he looks at the. Usually, a lot of places will have a music person there that's supposed to help to technical things. You know, that's part of the club. So this guy, we looked at him after the first song. We're like, the head broke, because normally they'll. It was their kit is what it was. It wasn't even our drummer's kit. Yeah, because they have it set up that you use their. So, as from what I remember, I think that's what it was. Either way, they were supposed to. Usually they have something. Well, the guy looked at us and went like threw his hands up, like, I don't know what to do. So we played that entire show with the, you know, without having the kick drum, and it was just terrible, and I was sweating. I just was so embarrassed, because to me it made it, I thought every song sounded terrible, and that was just, I mean, that was one event. And we've had events where people come up on stage and did things, and, you know, got drinks thrown everywhere, almost got electrocuted. I got electrocuted on my lip before at the Paso Robles Mid-State Fair. And it wasn't during the Mid-State Fair. It was during another event, not during the fair. And there was a lot of bands, and I think it was kind of rainy out, and I don't know what it was, but it was, you can see like a line, like a lightning thing, come from the microphone to my lip. It was like purple, and I mean, it hurt. And then I kept thinking, oh my God, you know, because it's like, should we still keep playing? What if we just totally get electrocuted? And I mean, like I said, I can go on to like crazier, but I don't, some of them I don't want to say because they're crude, and I don't want to say some of the things that happened. Really, there was one where there was a fight at the Paradise Club in Grover. There was a fight that broke out on the dance floor, and so half of our band just took off their instruments and jumped into the pile. I mean, you know, the only one who didn't, I think, was the singer. I'm not sure. It was like everybody else was like, let's get in there. I don't know what happened. Well, we knew some of the people that were in the dance floor that were kind of getting jumped on. So we're all like, hey, you know. Anyway, quite a few things.
So has it been an overall positive thing being in a band with a bunch of females in like a male industry, or have you had some problems with that?
There's definitely, I want to say, some issues in there, because, you know, the one thing about when you get men involved in stuff, they like to be dominant, you know, and a lot of them, some of them are modest or humble, but some of them are not. And one thing a lot of them are is I feel like sometimes if you're a female in a band, you either really have to be good to prove to them that you're good, or they don't really care. They just think that maybe you're just there for, you know, maybe eye candy or something. I mean, me and, for instance, Debbie, because Debbie was in it a long time, we had a lot of times males say really direct, crude, rude stuff to us. Had nothing to do with our musical abilities. It was just all, you know, really kind of crude sexual stuff. They would say, they would yell at us, and sometimes get very forward to where we had to like try to get away from them after a show or something. You know, there was a lot. There was, I don't want to say a lot. Maybe we didn't know because we got so good at, um, we got so good at not letting it affect us that maybe we didn't even realize sometimes that it was happening because we got jaded from that. So
I think that's really common with women that are in the music industry, is they have to, really develop a tough shell to, get through. So how did you develop your tough shell?
Well, I'm pretty much a nice person. I don't, it takes a lot for someone to make me feel like I'm going to get upset or angry. So I'm really good at just like, oh, well, that wasn't a good comment, but I kind of let it go a lot. I think there was only once or twice where I was very offended and I was very upset at someone who was saying something to me. Other than that, I think I let it roll off, because if not, I would have had to be angry and in a confrontation a lot more than what I really wanted to. And I wanted it to be about the music, and I really was big on, look, I want the music to speak for it. I want to be able to show people I can play. I'm not just up there, dancing around, playing like a couple of bar chords. I'm really playing some things get complicated, and I wanted to prove that, and I think some people recognized, I was happy for the people, or even, the men who recognized that. Then I thought, good for them. They were looking at me as a musician and not just, oh, she's a female playing, so let's see what she could do,
Tell me about your public access channel.
Oh, that was actually created by Anthony. He created that, and it was called The Underground. I came into it after a while to help. So as what it was is we would go to mostly local shows that were like rock, metal bands, punk bands, mostly I would say metal, or hard rock, and we would film the band, and we would interview them at the Charter Studios, and play some of their songs, or videos of their songs, and then we would, like I said, interview them. And I was surprised that it was being watched as much, because I would run into people, because one thing that Anthony used to always do at the end is he would always go, stay metal. He'd put up his little horn, stay metal. That was the last thing of leaving the show. And I would have people come up to me and go, stay metal. And I was like,
oh, interesting.
What are they? I was like, well, what is that? And so then I was like, oh, okay. So it was fun. It was kind of fun because we got to meet a lot of other bands. We would sometimes book shows with the bands. Like we would play with them once we met them. And it was good to help out other musicians, because as what you're doing, it's not easy for unknown bands to get publicity, whether through our articles or radio or anything beyond. So something like what you're doing is a huge benefit for any kind of bands that are rock, metal, punk. I mean, other kinds too, but some of the other styles have an easier time getting reviews, and it's not that way it probably has not always been a lot that way for harder bands, especially in local areas like this. Where do you go if you want to know about what local rock bands? You don't, hardly,
I have one last question for you. Would you like to resurrect Ragg or start a new band?
I mean, sometimes I've thought about Ragg, resurrection, but it's, you know, it's been a long time, and I feel like that time was what it was, you know, and I don't want to, we wouldn't be playing the same kind of music. And I kind of feel it needs a whole new direction now. I mean, it would take a lot. Now, if somebody came to me, you know, and had money, and, or, you know, some company or some record thing and said, we really want, then that would be a different story. I would really think about that. But otherwise, now I feel like I have a different music direction and evolved into a different way. So I think I was going to do something. I'm planning. I have a couple friends. I still have my old singer who wants to do something. I have another friend. You met her, Madeline, and she was a singer in punk bands. She has a couple people playing, and they asked me to play guitar. But, you know, so I have all these things floating around. My brother also plays a lot of instruments, and sometimes we've jammed. So I'm just like all over the place. For a while, I wanted to make a metal mariachi band. I wanted it to be like Spanish sounding, but really hard. And, but, you know, I've jumped around on what I want to do. I can't commit right now. I'm kind of all over the place.
Well, I would love to check in maybe in an in-person interview and hear about plans after COVID has kind of gotten a little bit more under control. Well, thanks, Monique, for taking the time, because I know you're very busy, and I appreciate it, to come on here and talk on my humble little Zoom show.
No, you're totally welcome. I mean, I'm busy, but I have time. I had time for you. I have time for Stephanie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.